As the years go by, choosing who we spend our time with becomes one of the most important decisions of our lives. In old age, our peace, well-being, and freedom directly depend on the people around us. But be careful, because not everyone adds value. Some, without you even noticing, can drain you and steal your peace of mind. Today, I'm going to reveal the 7 types of people you should never live with after 60. No matter how much you love them or how many excuses you make for them, allowing them into your life could keep you from enjoying this stage as you truly deserve. Stay with me until the end, because number 7 is so common that you probably already have someone like this in your life. But before we begin, I want you to pay close attention to this story, as it will be very important for you to understand the great lesson of this video. Mrs. Carmen, at 68, was enjoying her life after many years of hard work. Her children had already settled into their own homes, and she, despite the loneliness, maintained her independence. Carmen felt happy in her home, surrounded by tranquility and the things she loved, like her garden and books. One day, her daughter Claudia called her, sounding worried. She explained that she had lost her job and, as a result, couldn't pay her rent. "Mom, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have nowhere to go," she said through sobs. Claudia asked Mrs. Carmen if she could move in with her for a while, as she had no other options. Mrs. Carmen, always willing to help her daughter, gladly accepted, thinking it would only be for a few weeks until Claudia found a solution. Claudia arrived with her belongings, and at first everything seemed fine. Mrs. Carmen was happy to have her daughter close and to support her during this difficult time. However, as the days went by, things began to change. Claudia didn't seem to be making any effort to improve her situation. She spent her days in her room, not looking for a job, or even trying to save money or find a solution to her problem. Mrs. Carmen initially thought it was just a phase, and that once Claudia felt better, she would start looking for alternatives. But that never happened. As days turned into weeks, Mrs. Carmen began to notice more significant changes in her home. Claudia started leaving her things everywhere. The living room became cluttered with clothes, books, and personal items. Mrs. Carmen, who had always kept her home tidy and cozy, began feeling uncomfortable with the mess. What had once been a peaceful place to relax and enjoy her books now felt overcrowded. The most challenging part was that Mrs. Carmen could no longer find moments of peace. When she wanted to read or rest in her favorite chair, Claudia was always watching television at full volume, blasting music, or constantly talking on the phone. Mrs. Carmen felt trapped in her own home, unable to enjoy the tranquility she valued so much. The stress began to build, and what had started as an act of love turned into a source of emotional exhaustion. The breaking point came one afternoon when Mrs. Carmen, after spending the morning running errands and grocery shopping, returned home to find Claudia sitting on the couch watching television. What hurt Mrs. Carmen the most was seeing that Claudia hadn't done anything all afternoon. No job applications, no offers to help around the house. Mrs. Carmen felt drained, not just physically but emotionally. She sat next to her daughter and, with a voice firm yet full of love, said, "Claudia, I have given you everything I can, but I can't keep doing this. I need you to take responsibility for your life. This house is not a place for you to stay without doing anything. I love you very much, but I can't let this continue to drain me. I want you to find a job, to take charge of your life, because that's the only way you'll overcome this. And most importantly, I don't want you to stay here if you're not willing to contribute, even a little, to the house." Claudia, though initially hurt and upset, understood that her mother wasn't doing this out of malice but out of love. Mrs. Carmen wanted Claudia to realize that she was helping her find her path and rise again. Over time, Claudia decided to take her job search more seriously, found employment, and started looking for her own place to live. Eventually, Claudia moved out, and Mrs. Carmen regained her space, tranquility, and the peace she cherished. Over time, Claudia also learned to take control of her life and become more responsible. Mrs. Carmen's story teaches us an important lesson. As we age, our peace and well-being must be our priority. Sometimes helping our loved ones is necessary, but it should never come at the cost of our tranquility. Setting boundaries is essential to protecting our quality of life in old age. Now that you understand the importance of prioritizing your well-being, let's uncover the 7 types of people you should never live with in your later years. Before we dive into the first type of person, if you find value in these videos, please subscribe and click the bell to stay updated. Let's begin. 1. The chronic complainers. Have you ever felt like your home becomes a black hole of negativity? Imagine waking up every morning and being greeted by a cloud of pessimism that spreads across the house. The chronic complainer is like that friend who always has a dark cloud over their head, but instead of staying in their own house, they decide to move in with you and bring their entire collection of storm clouds. They are experts at finding the negative side of absolutely everything. Is the coffee too hot? They complain. Is the coffee too cold? They complain. If by some miracle the coffee is just right, they'll complain about not having cookies to go with it. Now you might think, well, it's not that bad, they're just complaining. But be careful, because it's more serious than it seems. According to a study from the University of California, older adults who identify as pessimists are 30% more likely to experience mental health problems. 30%! It's as if pessimism were a virus and your chronic complainer is patient zero. And speaking of contagion, it turns out that pessimism is stickier than chewing gum on a summer day. A University of Michigan study revealed that people who spend time with negative individuals tend to adopt a pessimistic outlook on life. It's like the complainer is a DJ of negativity, playing their depressing hits at full volume until everyone in the house starts dancing to the rhythm of discouragement. To better understand this phenomenon, let me tell you the story of Mr. Ramon, a cheerful and optimistic retiree who decided to host his brother Pepe for a year. At first, Mr. Ramon thought it would be a great opportunity to reconnect with his brother and enjoy his company. But what he didn't know was that Pepe came with extra baggage, a suitcase full of complaints. Day after day, Pepe found new reasons to complain. The newspaper arrived late, the neighbors were too noisy, the food was either too salty or too bland. Mr. Ramon, always optimistic, tried to see the positive side of things, but little by little, Pepe's negativity began to affect him. After a few months, Mr. Ramon noticed that he no longer enjoyed his morning walks as much. He started seeing problems where he once saw opportunities. His contagious laughter faded, replaced by sighs of frustration. Without realizing it, he was becoming a reflection of his complaining brother. It was then that Mr. Ramon had an epiphany. He remembered the wise words of Buddha, "You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger." He understood that he was allowing his brother's negativity to punish him, robbing him of his joy and mental peace. Now, you might be wondering, how can I tell if I'm living with a chronic complainer? Well, here are some red flags. If every time you ask, "How are you?" you get an answer that sounds like the script for a disaster movie. If your housemate has more excuses than a student on the day the final project is due. If the only news they share with you are bad news, as if they were the presenter of the apocalypse news station. If their favorite phrase is "I told you so," and they use it more often than "good morning." If they have the ability to turn a victory into a defeat with just one comment. If you've answered yes to 3 or more of these points, congratulations, or maybe not, you're living with a chronic complainer. But don't despair, there's hope. Here are some practical strategies for dealing with these negative people without sacrificing your peace of mind. Set clear boundaries. It's like putting up a "Do Not Enter" sign on the door to your mind. When your housemate starts their symphony of complaints, kindly let them know you'd prefer to change the subject. Redirect the conversation. If your complainer starts lamenting about the bad weather, ask them about their favorite movie. It's like changing the channel when a show you don't like comes on. Practice active gratitude. For every complaint you hear, think of something you're thankful for. It's like playing ping pong, but with positivity. Use humor. Sometimes a good dose of humor can deflate the negativity bubble. But be careful. Make sure it's kind humor, not sarcastic. Remember the teachings of Stoicism. You can't control what others say or do, but you can control your response. It's like being the captain of your own ship in the middle of a storm of negativity. Seek out positive allies. Surround yourself with people who radiate good energy. It's like creating your own shield of positivity. Practice empathy, but with boundaries. Try to understand why your housemate complains so much. but don't let their problems become your own. Remember, in your later years, your mental peace is a treasure you need to protect at all costs, or with dentures if that's the case. Don't let a chronic complainer steal the joy of living this stage of your life. As the famous neighborhood philosopher Mr. Pepito once said, life is like a box of chocolates, but if you live with a complainer, they'll all taste bitter. So now you know, if you find yourself living with someone who turns your home into a complaint field, it's time to take action. In other words, it's not about changing the other person, that's as unlikely as it raining upwards, but about changing your response to the negativity. Keep your sense of humor, your positive perspective, and above all, your peace of mind. After all, you've made it this far, right? You deserve to enjoy every day with a smile, even if your housemate believes the end of the world is just around the corner. 2. The silent controllers. Have you ever had the feeling that someone else is taking the reins of your life? Imagine waking up one day and realizing that you're no longer the one deciding what to wear, what to eat, or even what time to leave the house. Sounds like a nightmare, right? These characters are like control ninjas, stealthy, subtle, and most dangerously often disguised as love and concern. They're the family members or friends who, with the best of intentions, or so they say, end up directing every aspect of your life. It's as if you suddenly become a character in a video game and someone else is holding the controller. But how does a silent controller operate? Imagine someone constantly saying things like, "Don't worry, we'll take care of that." At first it sounds great, right? Less responsibility for you. But over time you realize that you're not making any decisions for yourself anymore. It's like they've put the autopilot on, but you don't have control over the direction. The gradual loss of autonomy is like a drop of water constantly falling. At first you barely notice it, but over time it forms a huge hole in your self-esteem and independence. You wake up one day and ask yourself, when did I stop being myself? It's as if they've stolen your own identity without you realizing it. Let me tell you the story of Mrs. Sophia, a 70-year-old woman who was the undisputed queen of her home. She cooked delicious meals, went for walks every day, and even had a small book club with her friends. But when her daughter Marta moved in to take care of her, things changed drastically. At first, Marta only helped with small things, shopping, scheduling doctor's appointments. But little by little, she started taking control of everything. "Mom, don't cook. You might burn yourself. I'll handle it." "Mom, better not go out alone. It's dangerous. I'll come with you." "Mom, why do you want to read those books? Let's just watch a movie together." Before she knew it, Mrs. Sophia was spending her days sitting in front of the TV, eating whatever her daughter decided, and not even being able to choose her own clothes. Her life had become a golden cage and she didn't even have the key. Now, you're probably thinking, but how didn't she notice? Well, friends, silent control is like a magician. It distracts you with one hand while doing the trick with the other. The signals are subtle and often disguised as love and concern. It's like putting on rose-colored glasses. Everything looks nice until you take them off and see the reality. Some signs to watch for are when someone constantly makes decisions for you without asking, when they make you feel guilty for wanting to do things your way, or when they tell you that you can't do something without a valid reason. It's as if they've put you in a superhero suit, but it's really just a straitjacket in disguise. But all is not lost, dear friends. There are ways to regain control of your life without declaring a third world war at home. The key is setting clear boundaries, but with love. It's like putting up a fence in your garden. You define your space, but you still allow others to admire and visit it. One effective strategy is assertive communication. Instead of saying, "Stop controlling me," you can say, "I appreciate your help, but I'd like to make my own decisions in this matter." It's like being a diplomat in your own life, firm but kind. It's also important to recognize and thank genuine help, but clearly establish where the help ends and where the invasion begins. You can say something like, "I love that you helped me with the shopping, but I'd like to choose my own clothes." It's like giving them a map of your life, but you still remain the captain of the ship. Another useful tool is to involve your controller in activities that promote your independence. For example, if you're worried about something happening when you go out alone, invite them to a self-defense class with you. This way, not only are you empowering yourself, but you also show them that you can take care of yourself. It's like killing two birds with one stone, but without hurting any birds, of course. Remember, true care empowers, it doesn't limit. It's like giving someone wings, not a leash. A genuine caregiver should be like a gardener. They provide the water and nutrients, but they let you grow in your own way. As the philosopher Epictetus said, no man is free if he is not his own master. So, dear friends, don't let anyone take the control of your own life. Remember, you are the protagonist of your story, not a secondary character. So now you know, if you feel like someone is making too many decisions for you, it's time to put on the pants of autonomy and say, thanks, but I can do it myself. After all, life is too short to live it according to someone else's script. It's time to write your own story. 3. The emotional parasites. Have you ever felt like a human battery, constantly drained by someone else? Imagine having a friend who is like an emotional vacuum, always there to suck every drop of your energy. But what exactly is an emotional parasite? No, it's not that friend who always forgets their wallet when you go out to eat. An emotional parasite is someone who constantly demands your attention, time and energy without giving anything in return. It's like having a black hole in your life, absorbing everything you give without ever getting filled. Now, let's not confuse things. A healthy relationship is like a dance. You take a step, your partner takes another. There's an exchange, a flow of energy in both directions. With an emotional parasite, on the other hand, it's as if you're dancing alone while the other person sits comfortably watching. Living with someone like this can be exhausting, especially in old age. It's like someone has plugged a cable into your energy reserve and is constantly draining it. You wake up in the morning, feeling as if you've run an emotional marathon while you were asleep. And the worst part is, you didn't even get a medal for the effort. The impact of these relationships goes beyond just tiredness. It can affect your physical and mental health. You find yourself more irritable, with less patience, your stress levels shoot up, and your immune system starts working overtime. It's like your body is in constant survival mode, fighting against an invisible invader. But why are older adults especially vulnerable to these emotional vampires? Well, imagine that you're like a delicious grandma's cookie. Emotional parasites are like hungry children who've discovered where you keep the jar. They know you have experience, time, and often resources. You're the perfect target. Also, in old age, we sometimes feel more alone or isolated. We may have lost loved ones, or our social circle has shrunk. In that context, any company might seem better than none. But be careful, not all company is good company. Now, how can you tell if you're dealing with an emotional parasite? Pay attention to these subtle signs. Do you feel drained after spending time with a certain person? Do your conversations always revolve around their problems? Do you feel like that person always has a crisis and needs your help? If you're nodding like a bored doll, you may have an emotional parasite in your life. Another sign is when you start feeling guilty for wanting time for yourself. It's like that person has a guilt remote and uses it every time you try to set boundaries. But I thought we were friends. No one understands me like you do, are typical phrases from these masters of emotional manipulation. But don't worry, not everything is lost. There are strategies to deal with these emotional vampires without becoming Van Helsing. The key is to set firm emotional boundaries, but without feeling guilty about it. Remember, setting boundaries doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a healthy person. One powerful technique is emotional detachment. No, it's not about building a wall around your heart. It's more like creating an invisible shield. You listen, but you don't absorb. It's like the other person's problems bounce off your shield instead of sinking into your heart. Another strategy is practicing listening without absorption. Imagine you're a mirror. You reflect what the other person says, but don't internalize it. I understand you feel this way. It must be hard for you, are phrases that show empathy without compromising your emotional energy. It's also important to remember that you're not responsible for solving someone else's emotional life. As the great Carl Jung said, "He who looks outward dreams, he who looks inward awakens." It's time to look inward and recognize your own emotional needs. Setting clear boundaries is essential. You can say something like, "I appreciate our friendship, but I need time for myself." Or I care about you, but I can't be available 24/7. It's not being selfish, it's taking care of yourself. After all, you can't give from an empty well. And if all else fails, remember that it's okay to step away from relationships that drain you. Sometimes the best way to take care of yourself is to surround yourself with people who recharge you emotionally. Look for friends who are like solar chargers. They fill you with positive energy effortlessly. Remember, your emotional energy is a precious resource. Don't waste it on those who don't know how to appreciate it. Invest in relationships that make you feel alive, not drained. After all, life is too short to spend it being someone else's emotional gas station. Before we move on to the fourth type of person to avoid, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel with the bell so you don't miss future videos. And if you enjoy this kind of content as much as I do, comment, "I love these videos." By the way, also comment where you're watching from and what you'd like to see in upcoming videos. I read all your comments. Let's keep learning together and improving our lives. 4. Those who extinguish your dreams by reminding you of your age. Have you ever felt like your dreams have an expiration date? Like someone slapped a label on your forehead that says, "Too old to dream"? Well, get ready, because today we're tearing off those labels and showing that dreams don't have an age limit. Imagine for a moment that you're at a birthday party. There are balloons, cake, and lots of joy. Suddenly someone approaches you and says, "Don't you think you're too old to blow out the candles?" What a party pooper. Well, that's what those who extinguish your dreams by reminding you of your age are like. They are like those uncomfortable guests who show up at your life party just to tell you it's time to go to bed. But you know what? Life isn't a party with a closing time. It's more like an all-you-can-eat buffet where you can try anything at any hour and any time you want. Want to learn salsa dancing at 70? Go ahead. Feel like starting to paint at 80? Don't let anyone stop you. After all, who said Picasso had to put down the brushes at 30? Let me tell you the story of Mrs. Eugenia. At 75, she decided she wanted to learn to play the guitar. When she told her family, her oldest son almost choked on his coffee. "But Mom," he said, "don't you think you're a bit too old for that? Why not just knit or watch soap operas like the other grandmothers?" Mrs. Eugenia, not discouraged, replied with a smile, "Son, if you think I'm too old for the guitar, wait until I tell you my plan to try skydiving next year." Her son's face was priceless, but Eugenia didn't let that discourage her. She started her guitar lessons, and although her fingers protested a bit at first, soon she was playing like she had been born with a guitar in her hands. You see, my friends, dreams are like wine. They get better with age. Or do you think the brain has a closed for vacation sign after a certain age? Not at all. In fact, scientists have discovered that learning new things in old age helps keep the brain young and active. So every time you learn something new, it's like giving your brain a workout. Imagine having championship brain muscles at 80. But be careful. The dream extinguishers are tricky. Sometimes they disguise themselves as concern or realism. "At your age, wouldn't it be better to take care of yourself?" they'll say. As if chasing your dreams were a risky activity. Ha! What they don't know is that the real risk is in giving up on dreaming, in surrendering to the idea that it's too late. So the next time someone tries to extinguish your dreams by reminding you of your age, look them in the eye and say, "You know what? You're right. At my age, I don't have time to waste. It's time to make my dreams come true." And then, of course, go and do it. Show them that age is just a number and dreams don't have an expiration date. Remember, every time someone tells you you're too old for something, they're projecting their own fears and limitations onto you. Don't let their fears become your barriers. Your dreams are yours, not theirs. And if someone tells you that at your age you should settle down, remind them that your head has been settled for many years, and now it's time to stand up and dance. And you know what's the best part of chasing your dreams at an older age? You have a lifetime of experiences to back them up. You're like a chef with a pantry full of exotic ingredients. Why settle for a sandwich when you can prepare a gourmet feast? Also, think about all the amazing stories you'll have to tell. How did you learn to juggle fire, Grandpa? Oh, that's an interesting story. It all started when I turned 85. Doesn't that sound exciting? Definitely more exciting than telling how you learned to use the TV remote. So, dear friends, the next time someone tries to extinguish your dreams by reminding you of your age, Remember these words. Dreams don't have wrinkles, they don't retire, and they definitely don't need a cane to walk. Your dreams are as young and vibrant as you decide they are. And if you still need more inspiration, think of all those older people who have accomplished incredible things. There are grandmothers who run marathons, grandfathers who graduate from college, people who publish their first book at 90. What do they have that you don't have? Nothing but the determination not to let anyone extinguish their dreams. 5. Toxic and manipulative people. Imagine for a moment that your life is like a game of chess. You move your pieces calmly, planning your next move wisely. But suddenly, a player appears who not only changes the rules of the game, but also makes you believe that you're the one playing wrong. That, my friend, is the toxic manipulator in action. Let me tell you the story of Anna and Marcos, a couple that seemed like it came straight out of a fairy tale, until it wasn't. Anna, a 67-year-old woman, was enjoying her retirement when she met Marcos, a charming 70-year-old gentleman. At first, everything was rosy. Marcos was attentive, loving, and seemed to adore the ground Anna walked on. But, as in every good story, there was an unexpected twist waiting around the corner. Little by little, Anna began to notice subtle changes in Marcos's behavior. If she wanted to go out with her friends, Marcos would complain about feeling lonely. If Anna expressed an opinion different from his, Marcos would accuse her of not valuing him. And if Anna defended herself, Marcos would become the perfect victim, making Anna feel guilty for attacking him. It was as if Marcos had an emotional remote control and was playing with Anna's feelings like they were TV channels. One day, he made her feel on top of the world, and the next, he sank her into a pit of guilt and confusion. But what makes someone become a toxic manipulator? Psychology tells us that these behaviors often result from deep insecurities and a desperate need for control. It's as if these people have an emotional void inside them and try to fill it by manipulating others. The tactics of a toxic manipulator are as varied as the flavors in an ice cream shop, but just as sickening. Let's take a look at some of their favorites. Emotional blackmail. It's like they have an instant guilt button that they press whenever they want something. If you really loved me, you'd do this for me. Gaslighting. This is their specialty. They make you doubt your own perception of reality. I never said that. You must be imagining things. Emotional roller coaster. One day you're the best thing that's ever happened to them, and the next, you're the cause of all their problems. It's like living in an emotional action movie. Victimization. They're capable of turning into the victim in any situation, even when they're the ones who did something wrong. It's like they have a PhD in flipping the script. Conditional love. Their affection comes with more conditions than a mobile phone contract. I'll love you if you do exactly what I want. Living with such a person can be exhausting. It's like trying to hug a cactus. No matter how much you try with love, you always end up hurt. The impact on your mental and emotional health can be devastating. Many people living with toxic manipulators experience anxiety, depression, and a constant feeling of walking on thin ice. But all is not lost. There are ways to deal with these people without losing your sanity in the process. Here are some strategies you can use. Don't get caught up in their emotional games. When they try to manipulate you, respond calmly and firmly. It's like being a duck. Let the water roll off your feathers. Trust your perception. Don't let them make you doubt your reality. Your experience is valid. Don't let them distort it. Seek support. Surround yourself with people who value and support you. It's like having a team of personal cheerleaders who remind you how amazing you are. Consider the possibility of distancing yourself. Sometimes the best solution is to put some distance. You don't have to stay in a situation that's harming you. Remember, you're not responsible for fixing a toxic person. Your only responsibility is to take care of yourself. As the famous psychologist Carl Jung said, "It's not your fault they've chosen to turn their heart into a prison, but it's your responsibility not to become." 6. The excessively dependent. Have you ever felt like your life has turned into a puppet show, but you're not the puppeteer? Welcome to the fascinating and sometimes exhausting world of the excessively dependent. Imagine for a moment that your life is a restaurant. You're the chef, the waiter, and the owner. Everything is going fine until a customer arrives, who not only wants you to serve the food, but also wants you to chew it for them. That, my friends, is the excessively dependent person. This type of person is like a human vacuum cleaner, but instead of sucking up dust, they absorb your energy, your time, and your patience. They depend on you for everything, from deciding what clothes to wear to choosing what to think about the weather. It's as though they've outsourced all their decisions to your brain, and believe me, your brain didn't sign that contract. But why do some people become so dependent? Well, the reasons can be as varied as the flavors in an ice cream shop. Some may have grown up in environments where they were never allowed to make decisions. Others may have experienced traumas that caused them to lose confidence in themselves. And some simply found it easier to let others do everything for them. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying asking for help is bad. We all need a hand from time to time. The problem arises when that hand becomes a hook that clings to you as if you were the last lifeboat on the Titanic. Excessive dependence can be especially problematic in older age. It's like running a marathon, and just as you're reaching the finish line, someone decides to climb onto your back and make you carry them the rest of the way. It's not fair, right? Living with an excessively dependent person can be exhausting. You find yourself constantly in problem-solving mode, like you're a human calculator that everyone turns to for solving their life equations. And the worst part is, while you're busy solving other people's problems, your own needs get pushed aside. But all is not lost. There are ways to handle this situation without having to move to a deserted island. Though, let's be honest, sometimes that idea sounds tempting. First, it's essential to set clear boundaries. This doesn't mean building a wall around yourself, unless you're really good at masonry, but rather setting healthy emotional boundaries. You can start by saying something like, "I love helping you, but I also need time for myself." It's like putting up a "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door of your mind. It's also crucial to foster independence in others. This can be as simple as asking them for their opinion before making a decision for them. "What do you think we should have for dinner tonight?" They may feel like a deer caught in headlights at first, but over time they'll learn to trust their own decisions. Another effective strategy is problem-solving training. It sounds complicated, but it's simpler than it seems. Instead of solving the problem for them, guide them through the process of resolution. It's like teaching them how to fish instead of giving them the fish. At first it might take more time, but in the long run you'll save yourself a lot of headaches. It's important to remember that you're not responsible for another adult's happiness or well-being. It sounds harsh, I know, but it's the truth. You can be supportive, a shoulder to cry on, even a guide, but you can't live someone else's life. It's like trying to dance for someone else at a party. No matter how hard you try, they'll still be sitting while you wear yourself out. Now, if you find yourself living with an excessively dependent person, it's crucial that you take care of yourself. Set aside time for your own needs and activities. It's like putting on your own oxygen mask first on an airplane. You can't help others if you're running out of air yourself. Don't be afraid to seek professional help if the situation becomes too overwhelming. Sometimes, a therapist can provide valuable tools for both you and the dependent person. It's like calling a plumber when there's a leak. Sometimes you need an expert to fix things. So, the next time you find yourself in a situation where you feel like you're carrying the world on your shoulders, take a deep breath and remember, you're not Atlas, and it's not your responsibility to hold up the sky. It's okay to set limits. It's okay to say no, and it's definitely okay to prioritize your own well-being. After all, isn't that what we've been taught all these years? Take care of yourself first, because only then can you truly take care of others. And who knows, by setting these boundaries, you may not only be helping yourself, but also giving that dependent person the push they need to discover their own strength and capability. Sometimes, the best gift you can give someone is the opportunity to stand on their own 2 feet. So go ahead, be the director of your own life, not everyone else's personal assistant. Your peace of mind will thank you. 7. People with a poor mindset. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to be stuck in an endless loop, unable to move forward or grow? Today we'll dive into the fascinating world of people with a poor mindset. And no, I'm not talking about economic poverty, but something much deeper. The poverty of purpose and personal growth. Imagine for a moment that your life is a garden. People with a poor mindset are like plants that have settled for growing in a small pot, while you're ready to expand and bloom in a vast field full of possibilities. Does that sound familiar? Surely you've met someone like that. People who remain exactly the same as when you first met them, as if time has frozen for them. But it's not just me saying this. Science backs it up. Have you ever heard the saying that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with? It's not just a popular phrase, it's a reality supported by studies. Imagine for a moment that you live with only one person, your partner or a friend. How do you think that would affect your personal growth? Let me share something personal. This year, due to various circumstances, I've had the opportunity to live with many new people. I've lived in another country for several months, and let me tell you, the experience has been transformative. I feel like I've grown as if 5 years had passed instead of just 1. It's incredible what stepping out of your comfort zone and, above all, meeting completely new people can do. When you surround yourself with people who have a growth mindset, you learn so much. These people inspire you, show you qualities you might not have, and motivate you to work on yourself. They're like mirrors reflecting the best of you and pushing you to become a better version of yourself every day. But what happens when you surround yourself with people with a poor mindset? It's like trying to run a marathon with weights tied to your ankles. These people, without realizing it, can slow your growth. They lack clear purposes, don't strive for improvement, and worse, can make you believe that settling is normal. Think for a moment. When was the last time one of these people inspired you to try something new or to better yourself? You probably can't remember, and as the entrepreneur Jim Rohn once said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you surround yourself with people without ambitions or dreams, how can you expect to grow? Now, this isn't about judging anyone. Everyone has their own path and struggles, but it's important to be aware of how the people around us influence our lives. If you're someone with motivation and clear goals, do you think someone without purpose in life will want to stay close to you for long? The energy you project attracts similar people. Here's another secret. When you surround yourself with people who are on a higher level than you, your life takes off. It's as if you suddenly boarded a rocket instead of walking. These people challenge you, question you, and push you out of your comfort zone. And while it can be uncomfortable at times, it's in that discomfort that true growth happens. But beware, this isn't about abandoning your old friends or family. It's about finding balance. You can maintain those relationships, but make sure to actively seek out people who inspire and drive you to grow. It's like having a balanced diet for your mind and spirit. Now you may wonder, how can I start surrounding myself with people who push me to grow? Well, here are some tips. 1. Step out of your comfort zone. Enroll in courses, attend events, join interest groups. The more you expose yourself to new experiences, the greater the chances of meeting inspiring people. 2. Be the person you want to attract. If you want to surround yourself with motivated and ambitious people, start cultivating those qualities in yourself. 3. Don't be afraid to distance yourself from relationships that hold you back. Sometimes to grow, we need to prune a few branches from our social tree. 4. Cultivate a growth mindset. Understand that there's always room for improvement and learning, and seek out people who share this philosophy. Remember, it's not about being elitist or thinking you're better than others. It's about surrounding yourself with people who inspire you to be the best version of yourself. Because at the end of the day, life is too short to stay stuck in the same place. So I invite you to do a small exercise. Take a piece of paper and a pen and write down the names of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now ask yourself, do these people inspire me? Do they challenge me to grow? Do they support my goals? If the answer is no, it might be time to make some changes in your social circle. You are the gardener of your life. Choose carefully the seeds you plant and the people you surround yourself with. So get out there, connect with people who inspire you, who challenge you, who make you grow. Because when you do, you'll be surprised at how high you can soar. After exploring these 7 types of people, it's essential to be mindful of the individuals we choose to share our lives with, especially as we reach old age. Surrounding ourselves with people who support us, respect our space, and help us grow is key to maintaining our peace, well-being, and quality of life. Avoiding chronic complainers, controllers, emotional parasites, those who extinguish our dreams, toxic people, overly dependent individuals, and those with a poor mindset can make a significant difference in how we live the final stages of our lives. Remember, while love and helping others are important, we should never sacrifice our peace for the well-being of others. It's always necessary to set healthy boundaries to take care of ourselves. Now, I want to know, have you ever had experiences with people like this? How have you managed those situations? Leave me your comment below. I'd love to read it and respond personally. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "I deserve to be valued," so I know who the victors are that made it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate notifications for more content like this in the future. Share this video with those who might find it helpful and click the link in the pinned comment. Now, I recommend watching one of these two videos to keep learning about Stoicism and human psychology. A big hug, and see you next time.